History often speaks in whispers, but some figures thunder across centuries. Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore, was one of those rare rulers whose life felt less like a chapter in a textbook and more like a full-fledged epic, brimming with strategy, courage, ambition, innovation, and a defiance so unshakable that even empires trembled. From his birth in a small Karnataka town to his death on the ramparts of Seringapatam, Tipu Sultan's journey is a tale of a prince forged by war, a king driven by vision, and a patriot who refused to bow to the British at any cost. A prince born in the shadow of power. Tipu Sultan was born in 1751 at Devanahali, near modern Bengaluru. But this was no ordinary royal birth. He was born into the household of Haider Ali, a man who rose not through lineage but through sheer tactical brilliance to become the de facto ruler of Mysore. His mother, Fakhrunnisa, came from a respected administrative family. In short, Tipu inherited both the fire of a warrior and the discipline of a statesman. Haider Ali wasn't the kind of father who kept his son wrapped in silk and sheltered behind palace walls. Instead, from an early age, Tipu was groomed for the world outside, the unpredictable world of alliances, betrayals, and battlefield dust. A mind sharpened like a sword. Tipu's education was as intense as military training. Tutors immersed him in Islamic jurisprudence, history, mathematics, and the latest sciences of the 18th century. He mastered Persian, Arabic, and Kannada long before he mastered a sword. This multilingual ability later allowed him to communicate with diplomats and generals in their own tongues. He wasn't educated to simply run a kingdom. He was educated to transform it. A youth in battle camps. While most princes learned about wars through stories, Tipu learned by hearing the clash of steel and the commands of captains firsthand. Haider Ali regularly took his son to military campaigns, letting him absorb the rhythm of war. Tipu watched armies march, saw strategies unfold, and learned the art of reading terrain as if it were a secret language. By his late teens, he was already riding into real battles, commanding cavalry units and gaining admiration from veteran soldiers who saw a spark of something extraordinary in him. These early experiences built a general long before they built a king, a region on the edge of chaos. Southern India during Tipu's youth was a political pressure cooker. The Marathas were powerful, the Nizam of Hyderabad shifted alliances frequently, and the British East India Company hovered like a shadow, determined to swallow every kingdom that resisted. Mysore under Haider Ali had emerged as a formidable state, but the British saw Mysore as a roadblock on their highway to absolute dominance. Every encounter between the two powers added tension to an already explosive environment. In this landscape, Tipu matured, not just as a warrior but as a visionary aware that Mysore had to be stronger, smarter, and more innovative than its rivals to survive. A king crowned in turbulence. When Haider Ali passed away in 1782 amid the Second Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu Sultan inherited not a peaceful kingdom, but a war in full swing. His coronation was less a celebration and more a command. Continue the fight. Tipu responded not with hesitation, but with immediate action. He reorganized his forces, pushed back the British, and ensured that Mysore would not fall easily. His energy, speed of decision-making, and determination stunned both allies and opponents. At just 31, he was already the most formidable ruler in southern India, reforming a kingdom with the mind of a modernist. Tipu Sultan did not believe a kingdom could rely on swords alone. He was a forward-thinking administrator whose reforms touched every corner of Mysore. He introduced a structured revenue system, improved tax collection, and reduced corruption by placing trustworthy officers in key posts. His land reforms boosted agricultural productivity, while his emphasis on irrigation and water systems helped farmers thrive. He also encouraged local industries, supporting everything from silk production to weapon manufacturing. Under him, Mysore became not just a military powerhouse, but a thriving economic hub. The Sultan who brought science to the battlefield. If Tipu walked into a modern lab, he would probably understand half the equipment instinctively. He was obsessed with technology, especially military innovation. His most famous legacy? Rockets. Mysorean rockets were the world's first iron-cased rockets, far superior to anything the British had ever seen. They had longer range, better accuracy, and psychological impact. The British often panicked at the sight of them zigzagging through the air with fiery tails. These rockets later inspired the British Congreve rockets used in Europe and America. Imagine that. Tipu's battlefield innovation influencing global warfare. He modernized artillery with French help, trained soldiers in European formations, and upgraded fortifications. His army became one of the most disciplined in India, a diplomat who played global chess. To Tipu, alliances were weapons. He built bridges with France, Turkey, and Persia. The French especially became invaluable partners. French engineers improved Mysore's defenses, trained troops, and helped boost artillery precision. The British weren't just worried, they were terrified. A Mysore supported by France was a nightmare scenario for the East India Company. Tipu also attempted to build a navy. His resources were limited, but he dreamt big: shipyards, coastal bases, and a fleet to protect Mysore's trade routes. He understood the importance of maritime power long before many Indian rulers did. A patron of art, architecture, and knowledge. Behind the armor was a ruler who breathed culture. Tipu loved poetry, architecture, and books. He built libraries, patronized scholars, and encouraged artistic expression. His palaces and public buildings reflected a blend of Islamic, Persian, and South Indian aesthetics. He didn't see culture and development as luxuries. They were pillars of a thriving kingdom. Battles that echoed across continents. Tipu Sultan's wars with the British are legendary. The Battle of Polalur alone was enough to send shockwaves through the East India Company. His tactics, quick cavalry strikes, rockets, and manipulation of terrain, made him one of the most feared commanders of his time. His conflicts with the Marathas were equally fierce, marked by shifting alliances and intense territorial battles. Yet, Tipu held Mysore's boundaries with a stubbornness that frustrated every rival. He didn't merely fight wars, he orchestrated them. The siege that defined his character. By 1799, the British, Marathas, and the Nizam joined forces to crush Mysore once and for all. Seringapatam was surrounded, but Tipu refused to escape, negotiate, or surrender. When told he could live peacefully if he accepted British terms, he famously replied, "Better to live one day as a tiger than 1,000 years as a sheep." On May 4th, 1799, Tipu Sultan died fighting near the breach of his fort, sword in hand, defending his kingdom until his last breath. His fall marked the beginning of full British dominance in southern India, a kingdom without its tiger. The British celebrated, but they also knew what they had lost, a formidable opponent who had kept them awake for decades. After Tipu's death, Mysore's administration was reshaped, resources redirected, and power handed to loyal rulers under British oversight. The region changed forever. A roar that refuses to fade. Tipu Sultan remains one of the most debated figures in Indian history. Indian historians hail him as one of the earliest freedom fighters, a man who resisted colonial rule long before it became a nationwide movement. British accounts, tinted with imperial bias, often emphasize their conflicts with him. But what no one denies is his brilliance. A king who modernized warfare, a ruler who reformed administration, a diplomat who played international politics, a patriot who chose death over submission. His sword, his rockets, his palaces, and his legend continue to captivate scholars, filmmakers, tourists, and students. And that brings us to the end of the extraordinary life of Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore, the king who dared to stand alone against an empire, and the leader whose roar still echoes through history. If this journey through his battles, brilliance, and legacy gave you a deeper appreciation for one of India's most iconic rulers, then don't let it end here. Tap that like and hit subscribe.